The winter sun was sinking behind the distant ridge when the Comanche warrior, Tahoma, rode across the silent white plain, his horse's breath steaming in the frozen air, the world around him muted by a thick blanket of snow that swallowed sound and life alike. He had been tracking a group of runaway horses stolen from his band, but hours of following faint hoof marks had led him farther north than he intended, into a land where icy winds cut through even the heaviest furs and where no man lingered without purpose. As he reached a narrowing valley, he noticed an odd depression in the snow, something that did not match the natural curves left by drifting wind. He slowed his horse, eyes narrowing, instinct warning him that something was terribly wrong. Drawing closer, he saw what no warrior, no father, no human heart could ever ignore: a tiny head barely emerging from the snow, the face blue and shaking, lashes beaded with frost, lips trembling in a silent plea for life. A little girl, no older than 6, buried to her neck in the frozen ground as if the world itself tried to swallow her. Tahoma leapt off his horse, heart pounding, kneeling in the snow, his breath coming quick as he brushed frost away from her cheeks. "Little one, stay awake," he whispered in a deep, steady voice, though fear clawed inside him. The child's eyes flickered open, glassy with suffering. She tried to form words, but only a cracked whisper escaped. "Cold. Don't leave." Those words pierced him deeper than any arrow could. Wasting no time, he pulled out his knife and began digging around her with desperate speed, knowing that every second mattered. The snow was hard as stone, packed by rough hands, and it became clear that this was no accident. Someone had put her there deliberately. Tahoma's jaw tightened. Who could commit such cruelty? When he finally freed her tiny form, her legs were stiff as wood, her fingers rigid, her clothes frozen onto her skin. He pressed her against his chest, trying to share warmth, wrapping her in his buffalo hide cloak, feeling how light she was, how fragile. She whimpered softly, leaning into him as if she instinctively trusted him. With urgency burning through every movement, Tahoma mounted his horse, cradling the child firmly against him, and rode toward the nearest shelter he knew, a small Comanche winter camp miles away. The journey was brutal. The wind sliced across his face, snow stung his eyes, and the child's body grew alarmingly still. He kept talking to her, telling her stories of the warm lodges waiting ahead and the fire that would keep her safe, hoping his voice anchored her to life. Along the way he found scattered footprints, adult boots, 3 men at least, and realized they were leading away from the exact spot where he found the girl. Whoever had done this had not cared whether she lived or died. Anger flared in him, a quiet fire, but he pushed it down. First he had to save her. When he finally saw the distant glow of campfire smoke drifting above the snowy ridge, strength returned to him. The warriors were shocked when they saw him arrive with the frost-bitten child, and the women rushed forward with blankets, hot stones and warm broth. Tahoma stayed close, watching as they worked, feeling a strange protectiveness rise in him. Who was she? Why had she been left to die? And why, when she finally opened her eyes again, did she cling to his hand as if she belonged nowhere else? Little did he know, saving this single girl would soon drag him into a storm bigger than any blizzard, a storm of secrets, vengeance, and a truth that would bring an entire world crashing toward him. Viewers' night had fully wrapped the Comanche camp in its dark, star-studded blanket by the time the little girl's breathing steadied. Her tiny hands warmed with heated stones wrapped in furs, her body slowly recovering from the brutal cold that had almost claimed her life. She slept lightly beside the fire, while Tahoma sat a few feet away, sharpening his knife with long, steady strokes. Though his thoughts wandered far from the blade, he kept glancing at her, this fragile stranger whose fate had now tangled with his. The elders gathered near him, speaking in low tones, asking how he found her, where she came from, and why someone would abandon a child to die in the snow. Tahoma could only shake his head. He had no answers, only questions piling heavier than the snow clouds above. When dawn broke soft and pale, the girl stirred and blinked up at the world with wide, fearful eyes. Tahoma approached gently, crouching beside her. "You're safe," he said in a soothing tone. "Can you tell me your name?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Ella." Her voice cracked with exhaustion, but something in her expression revealed a spark of trust. Over the next hour, fragments of her story came out. She had lived with her uncle and 2 older cousins after her. Parents died, but they were cruel, always angry, always drinking, and 2 days ago they dragged her into the wilderness, shouting that she was a burden. They had buried her alive in the snow, telling her that no one would miss her. At those words, the entire lodge fell silent with disbelief and disgust. Tahoma felt his fists clench. Never had he imagined such depth of brutality. He vowed then, silently but fiercely, that he would not let those men go unpunished. For now, though, Ella needed safety more than vengeance. Over the next few days, she followed Tahoma like a shadow, helping with small tasks, feeding the horses, learning names and faces in the camp. The warriors treated her gently, and the women braided her hair, teaching her Comanche words, giving her a sense of belonging she had never known. But danger had not passed. On the 4th morning, Tahoma and 2 scouts spotted smoke rising several miles away, too close for comfort. When they investigated, they found boot prints, whiskey bottles, and burned scraps of Ella's clothes. Her uncle and cousins were searching, not to save her, but to erase loose ends. Tahoma's jaw tightened. A storm of protective fury rose inside him. He returned immediately, gathered the warriors, and prepared for confrontation. But Ella, seeing the tension, tugged at his sleeve, fear trembling in her voice. "They're coming, aren't they?" He knelt in front of her, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Let them come," he said calmly. "You have a whole camp that stands with you now." And he meant it. That evening, as the shadows deepened, 3 drunken, stumbling men approached the outskirts of the Comanche camp. They shouted threats, demanding the girl be returned. Tahoma stepped forward alone, a tall silhouette against the firelight, his expression carved with resolve. "She will not go with you," he said. "Not now, not ever." The men drew guns. But in seconds, the Comanche warriors surrounded them, bows drawn, spears ready, forming a circle of lethal silence. The men dropped their weapons, fear replacing their earlier rage. Tahoma confronted them, his voice thunderous with controlled anger, telling them their cruelty had no place in any land, white or native. The warriors exiled them, forcing them to walk back into the wilderness unarmed, left to face the cold they had once used as a weapon. When it was over, Ella ran to Tahoma, burying her face against him, relieved beyond words. He lifted her gently into his arms, the same way he had when he first pulled her from the snow, and in that moment he knew that saving her had changed him forever. She was no longer a stranger. She was under his protection, part of his soul's duty, and as the fire crackled and the camp hummed with quiet peace, Tahoma realized that sometimes the smallest act of mercy could change the course of many lives, drawing paths together that were never meant to cross. Viewers, if this chapter touched your heart, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more emotional, powerful Western stories every week.